What was your biggest teenage mistake? Story 1. Trying to be someone who I wasn't. Learning who you are takes time. Realizing what you're really about is key. I listened to a Childish Gambino song and the hook says, "Y'all just mad 'cause I'm doing me better than you're doing you." That shit hit hard. Story 2. Not realizing that my parents weren't doing the best job raising me / preparing me for adulthood, and realizing I should maybe take matters into my own hands. Story 3. I did not rebel. My parents incessantly accused me of rebelling and general debauchery despite being in a huge club sport on scholarship, being involved in school councils, having extracurriculars like orchestra and art, which I always won awards for, having a 3.6 GPA, being the first in my family on track to go to a huge university, etc., etc., etc. I spent my high school life hopping in between crying, self-loathing, and suicidal ideation when I could have been having fun and enjoying my childhood. I spent too much time wondering why my parents didn't love me, instead of doing something about it and refusing to respect them. Story 4. I was a rather negative person as a teenager, but tried to play it off as sarcasm instead. I somehow had grown into this weird bubble where I made fun of almost every little thing, but I didn't really realize that I was also hurting my friends by doing that. I did lots of growing up after high school, and I'm a bit sad about not keeping in touch with my old friends. They might have liked me more today than they did back then. Story 5. Being afraid of girls. Didn't realize that they were normal humans too, who just wanted to have fun and be liked. They were mysterious and scary, and I lost a lot of years being self-conscious and shy. Story 6. Trying to be more mature. Since childhood, I prided myself on being an extremely smart person who was above things like cartoons and playing. Of course, I still liked those things, but I desperately tried to hide it, even though literally nobody actually cared. While everyone my age was dashing to tab away from porn, I was tabbing away from Minecraft Let's Plays. Even though I'm older now and I know that people don't care, I still find myself tabbing away from cartoons and pausing games when people try to see what I'm doing. That instinct is still there. I usually just force myself to resume what I was doing, but I feel like I'd be better off if I didn't have the desire to prove myself to others as a kid. Story 7. My biggest teenage mistake was not being kind to myself. My teenage years were some of the hardest in my life, hopefully. Trauma after trauma, disappointment after disappointment, and I always blamed myself for them all. It wasn't until recently I could start looking back and realize that it really wasn't my fault. I did a lot more than most would have done in my situation, and that even though I had terrible teenage years, it's not a reflection on who I am, but more a reflection on what I was going through. It makes coming to terms with losing out on that part of your life much easier, and I wish I had this mindset much earlier. Story 8. Back when I was just a young hoodlum, I was out for a very late evening drive. Nice cool air and my car was making good power, which, for a Turbo 5.0 Mustang, is quite a bit of power. I was cruising at 100 miles per hour with occasional jaunts to much higher speed. Came up to a town and saw a police roadblock. About the same time, I saw lights about a mile behind me. I was pretty sure they couldn't have ID'd me by that point, so I took off. Did a little fancy driving and gave them the slip, for a while. Long story short, it came down to wrecking my car or giving up, and I decided to give up. Felony, fleeing the police in a motor vehicle, reckless endangerment, and a couple other charges is what I ended up with. I was 19 at the time. Now I'm 33. I'm an engineer married to a wonderful man who unfortunately I am not able to have children with. We looked into adoption, but with one of us being a former felon, it's a bit of a non-starter. Story 9. Not losing kilos from the beginning. I know it may sound stupid, but being an overweight teenager made me become an outcast everywhere. Kids and adults can be cruel, and even self-esteem was bad. I only lost those kilos near the end. Wish I did it much sooner. Story 10. Forcing myself to fall in love with a girl. I didn't love her. I was in love with the idea of a girlfriend. Now, to be fair, she made the same mistake. She didn't love me. It was a bad relationship. Story 11. High school football. My doctor advised me against it, but I was 14 and knew everything. Putting my body through 4 years of abuse was not worth what I got out of it. Today I'm 33 and wake up with a stiff neck every day. My right shoulder has a ton of scar tissue, my elbow has a bone chip, my jaw clicks and pops if I open it too wide, and both of my knees ache when it gets too cold. Also, our team sucked. Story 12. Having an online relationship with a girl throughout high school who broke up with me after I flew out to visit her. Those were years I could have spent dating the girl I'd had a crush on since 5th grade. Story 13. I didn't let myself have much fun. I always thought about things like I was already an adult and always had to be responsible and mature. There are a lot of things I passed up that could have been really fun had I just let myself enjoy life a little. Story 14. Drugs. I wish I had never touched any of them. Cigs, Roxys, weed, all of it. I literally had done almost every drug you can think of and had been addicted to 4 different kinds of them. Drugs ruin lives. It doesn't matter how innocent they seem at first, or how innocent they can be physically and mentally, they catch up to you. And the next thing you know, it's been 7 years, and you're still acting like a teenager. You wake up when you get some clean time, and you look back at nothing but regret, destroyed relationships, and your apathy for the people in your life, and you cry. I cried for months after. I wasted so much time, and cared so little about everything except my next high. Don't do drugs, guys and gals. They're awfully insidious. One minute you think it's just for fun, and the next you need them. Not always a physical need, an emotional and psychological need that invades every aspect of your life and prevents you from processing your life properly. It destroys your liberty. It does not give it to you. It's a prison of your own creation. Story 15. Treating high school as an obligation and not an opportunity. Not just social, but economical gains and your own development are way greater affected by how you view your high school years. Maybe every day, or at least every other day, I think to myself, I wish I would have taken high school way more seriously and not just gone through the motions. This will be a huge point of emphasis on raising my son. Story 16. I took teenage stereotypes too seriously. Like, I thought the kinds of dynamics you saw in teen movies were real. Jocks were all dumb assholes, nerdy kids were smart virgins, etc. It took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize that people are people, and that I was severely limiting myself by assigning myself a role. Story 17. Not focusing on good friendships. I used to hang out with some douchebags, but I don't have a single friend from my high school days anymore. Granted, I moved about 3,800 kilometers away, so it's hard to stay in touch on a meaningful level. No offense to those who find social media meaningful, it just doesn't do it for me. Story 18. Not caring. Bummed out of school and had no goals or ambition. Still paying for it in a dead-end minimum wage job 10 years later. No career, no qualifications. That laziness and ambivalence stuck with me. Story 19. Getting fat. I entered high school weighing 160 pounds. Tried to start in football for 2 years where I gained muscle and fat and got up to 240 pounds. Ended up quitting football because I didn't get the starting position. I quit working out as well, but I kept eating like I was. Ballooned to 300 by the time I was 28, and finally had enough. It took 1 year, but I lost 130 pounds and have been maintaining it for 3 years. Story 20. I didn't really do much of anything as a teenager, so it's hard to point to anything in particular as that big of a mistake. I would probably say downloading Reddit is my biggest mistake. Story 21. Took my parents' car and ran away at 16 to start a new life with a girl I met online who was threatening to kill herself if I didn't. Didn't plan on how to hide a car that's been reported stolen. Story 22. Driving under the influence when I got my first car. I used to drive when going out with friends under the guise of not drinking, but inevitably would end up having a couple drinks and would drive home anyway. Never got drunk to the point of being a severe danger behind the wheel, but it was still stupid as hell. My 33-year-old self shudders now at my own idiocy. Story 23. Just never manning up and asking out a girl. I'd say I am somewhat above average looking. In high school, I was the funny guy who pretty much no one disliked, so it turns out I had a decent amount of girls who had crushes on me. But I never saw myself as attractive due to a skin condition, so anytime a girl was dropping hints, I just chalked it up to them being nice. Story 24. Well, so far it has been not keeping up my relationships with people while doing school online, because now I have no friends. But I'm sure I'll do something worse sometime soon here. Story 25. I was teased a lot when I was younger. I was chubby and socially awkward. When I became a teen, I grew a lot and lost a lot of weight, but the damage to my self-esteem had been done. One time, when I was in grade 11, I was sitting in the cafeteria. There was a group of girls sitting further down the table from me, looking at me and giggling to each other. One of them passed me a note that said, "I like you, my name," but they spelled my name wrong. A common mistake for my name. I tossed it back and coldly said, "You spelled my name wrong." Got up and walked away. God, I felt like a afterwards. I thought they were teasing me, leading me into a trap where I'd hit on one of them and they'd all laugh at me at my expense. But one of them, maybe all of them, really did like me, and they were all super cute. I crushed some girls hard. Story 26. Trusting my boyfriend not to poke holes in the condom to get me pregnant, to get away from his parents. Apparently, in his deluded mind, we were going to live happily ever after on the salary of 2 non-working kids in high school. Story 27. Thinking everyone hated me all the time when I was just projecting my self-hatred onto them. Also, I pushed myself so hard that I burnt out in a permanent way. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self that she didn't have to do everything, and be perfect. I honestly can't believe I survived my teen years. Story 28. I was 16 and moved in with my 21-year-old boyfriend at the time. It took an abusive 8 years and so many severed relationships to realize that in no way was that situation normal. If I didn't do that, I would have completed my education and probably been much more successful in my life than I am now. Story 29. Having a phone wasted 10 years of my life, still going, and negatively impacted everything from my social skills to my overall intelligence. I'm 19 years old now, and I don't feel like I'm ready for real life. Having a job, having a girlfriend, buying a car, argumenting, it just seems too much for me because I'm so smooth-brained. I'm still to this day wasting my life away on my phone while missing out on so many experiences. Story 30. Drinking. Seemed harmless at the time, and everyone was doing it, but it became a habit and led to over a decade of bad behavior and regret before I was able to kick it. Came here to say this. Started drinking at 15, 16, and it just took off after the first time I got drunk. Was an 18-year-old hardcore alcoholic. Family full of addicts, so I should have had way better judgment. Luckily, a couple years later, I'm doing a lot better. But being so young with that issue sucks, because everybody around you can just do it. Story 31. Deciding I was going to major in fine arts. I kind of boxed myself in by not considering other options. I still don't understand how anyone can expect a teenager to know what they want to do after high school. By that point, nobody's really had a chance to live or figure out who they are without their parents or without going to school. You have to be able to live a little before you really know what you want. If I could go back, I would have taken a gap year or two instead of jumping straight into college. Story 32. Taking religion too seriously. I guess I can't really blame myself because it was how I was raised and the environment I was in, but I think I would have had more fun if I'd listened more to the part of myself that said, "Wait a minute, is this even real?" Story 33. I stopped working out when I graduated high school. I got in the habit, starting in the 6th grade, of going to school at 6 a.m. and working out with the football team before school. By the time I graduated high school, I was pretty ripped. I got out of the habit and got out of shape. Story 34. Jumping from relationship to relationship. Part of me wishes I could have explored who I was without someone attached to me. I was too emotionally immature to even handle serious relationships. Now I feel like I hurt some people and was hurt by some people. All of it unnecessarily. I did, however, end up meeting my wife and mother to my beautiful daughter. I don't regret that at all. However, it would have been nice to end up in the position I'm in without all the teenage stupid drama. Story 35. My parents sued McDonald's on my behalf when I was a minor. Long story, but it essentially boils down to their play place not being up to code and my face hitting the pavement. Anyway, I got the money when I turned 19, and blew it all pretty much immediately. At that time, I could have put a down payment on a house. I don't recommend giving 19-year-olds a shit ton of money. Story 36. Dating a 27-year-old. When I was 13, I thought it was a flex he liked me and thought I was pretty, and all of my friends told me it was weird, but I wouldn't listen. He told me they were jealous, and nobody saw what he saw in me, and he was the only one who could ever see potential in me. He quite honestly ruined my life and completely altered the course of it over a 2-year period. I still have nightmares from the things he made me do for him and to him, and think of him at least 3 times a day. Therapy hasn't helped. Talking about it hasn't helped. I've tried to unalive myself 9 times because of him during the relationship and a few months ago. Even I can't get any of it out of my head, and I'll forever hate how dumb I was for not seeing the truth and not listening to literally everyone that was important to me. Story 37. Getting way too hung up on someone and being kinda creepy about it. It was a pretty nasty awakening once I realized, got it through my thick skull, that I was making them uncomfortable and that I needed to stop. Thankfully, I had the good sense to just spend a year working on myself and figuring out how not to be a creep and how to be, emotionally healthy. Reevaluating your preconceptions and biases is really awful work, but I will say it's well worth it. It made me much happier in the long run and got me past most of the worst of my dating troubles. Plus, I might have dodged becoming, incel or something. I don't know if I ever would have gotten that bad, but in retrospect, I think I might have once been vaguely on that path. I just wish I could undo being creepy towards my friend. That's a harm I've done that I'm not really ever gonna get back or be able to fix. Story 38. Being an absolute asshole to my best friend. She didn't deserve that shit. I was abusive towards her. And the fucked up thing is that until I was really going to therapy and working on myself, which wouldn't happen for a few years after graduating, I didn't understand why she stopped talking to me. I was mad at her for it. But looking back on the shit I did back then, that I didn't even register as bad or mean, I made fun of how she ate, I stole food from her, I would slap her arm a lot harder than could be explained away as a friendly tap. I talked her into numerous situations she was uncomfortable and very clearly so with. I made fun of her for wanting to stay a virgin. I was a piece of shit. All of that is just scratching the surface. I know in retrospect that I made her feel incredibly unsafe on multiple occasions. And the thing is, I didn't start to come to that understanding until I was around 23. That was 5 years after she stopped talking to me. For that entire time, I didn't understand why she had stopped talking to me, and I was upset over it. It wasn't for another 3 years of therapy that I fully came to an understanding of just how fucking awful I was. Most of those 3 years were me trying to excuse my actions with every reason under the sun, and my therapist, who had the patience of a saint, calmly shooting down every excuse and diving into why I thought it was a viable excuse. This is a big part of why I advocate that while disabilities, neurological issues, and mental health issues can explain why a person acts a certain way, it doesn't excuse the harm that they do due to those actions. And it's trying to reach out to her to try to apologize, it seems cheap now. What can you say for a situation like that? I'd really rather not dig up the past for her. She doesn't deserve that. She's moved on with her life, and frankly, I'm incredibly glad that her life doesn't involve me. She didn't deserve what I put her through, and she deserves to be happy. Story 39. I'm gonna voice type this, so forgive the errors. For context, in school, I was super smart and almost a jock. If you've seen 13 Reasons Why, I've done one of those reasons. In 8th grade, when I came out as gay, in Kansas, I was bullied so horribly that eventually I came out as gay. I abused my previous popularity status and said it was a prank to get this fat, more obviously gay guy to come out and rejoin the popular kids. Given the amount of hate that I received, I cannot imagine the hate that he received. I truly think I did one of the most horrible legal things you can do to someone. Think about it every day.